guys, it's Jen here at Check Her Joy. This time I'm reviewing Stars Above, a Lunar Chronicles collection of short stories by Marissa Meyer. So these are set in the universe of the Lunar Chronicles. These short stories are about all the characters from Cinder, Scarlet, Cress and Winter. So if you haven't read those books yet, this review will spoil these. So go read them first and then come back, start with Cinder, start chronologically. And I will post the link to my reviews for those down below if you want to check them out. So 4 of these short stories, 5, half of these short stories have already been released and were like out there. Like my copy of Cinder has glitches in it. And then there are the other half are new short stories, including the epilogue for the whole series. I'm gonna go through and review each of these one by one, and with the exception of the little android, which is set in the same universe but doesn't have any of the main characters, and the epilogue, which is something new, something old, I don't think have anything in them that you wouldn't already know from having read these, so I'm just gonna review them as if they were spoiler free. And when I get to the little android, I'll be like, guys, if you guys don't want to know what's happening, I'll give you guys spoiler alerts for this book specifically when I get there. So, yeah. This matches the rest of the Lunar Chronicles in that these stories can be really depressing and heartbreaking, but also really hopeful and cute and sweet at the same time sometimes. So I like it that it just keeps in, it feels like the rest of the series, guys. If you found the rest of the series depressing, this is also depressing. It does with a lot of background and their backstories. So some of these end very sadly, but if you've read the rest of the series, you know that's not the end of the story. So I was okay with that because I know that it's gonna get better. Like they're gonna have their almost happy ending. We'll find out in the epilogue whether or not it's really happy, but it's okay, guys. It's okay. It can be heartbreaking, but it'll all be okay at the end. So the first short story is The Keeper, which follows Michelle Benoit, who is Scarlet's grandmother, and she's the one who kept Cinder while she was in suspended animation on Earth, like hiding Cinder before she went to live with Lynn Guerin. So I liked the story because we get to find out about Michelle. She appears in Scarlet, but we don't really get to meet her a whole lot. She's missing for most of the book, and then she dies, so she doesn't really get to talk to Cinder, and we don't really find out why she did it. So in this short story, we do. We find out why we find out the hows and why she ended up hiding Cinder and how she felt about it. We find out how Scarlet came to live with her grandmother and the really complicated relationships Scarlet has with her dad. We get to see more of that. And we get to meet Logan, who is the Lunar that Michelle had an affair with, fell in love with, however you want to look at that. And yeah, so we get to meet Scarlet's granddad. And I love the story. It has wonderful little touches to it. It's really sweet. And I really liked getting to see Michelle's point of view. And yeah, getting a lot of answers. A lot of things that I was like, a lot of the questions I wanted answered, we get in this short story right off the bat, and I love it. The next one is Glitches, and this follows Cinder when she first comes to live with Lynn Guerin and his family, so Audrey and Pearl and Peony. And, it's the start of the Cinderella story. It's not a very happy ending to the short story. Lynn Guerin ends up with Letimosis. She ends up stuck, but there are some really nice touches in here, like getting to see her and Peony when they're little and how Peony just tries to be so nice to her to begin with, and Cinder really is struggling because she's a cyborg and nobody else around her is a cyborg, so she doesn't really know how she should behave. And Audrey does not take to Cinder, not even at the beginning. I thought maybe there was a moment when she might have been nice to her, but no, that didn't happen. And Cinder tries so hard to fit in, and she fixes Aiko. So it was cool to see, Cinder's the one who fixed her. But also to see I guess Cinder builds up her hope that it's gonna be okay. I fix this android. I can be helpful and useful. And then Lynn Garen gets taken away, and it's not like she never gets credit for that. So I feel so bad for Cinder. Um, the next short story is The Queen's Army, which follows Wolf on Luna, and it's the story of how he became one of the Queen's soldiers. How he got turned into this wolf-like creature. We start off with him and his family before he gets taken, and we get to see like his brother and how like a normal family is, and then the transition as he becomes a soldier, and he's like thinking things through and trying to figure out what's good and not. And I feel it's another one of the ones that's really sad because you know it's not gonna end well. Like, yeah, poor Wolf. And we get to find out how he became the alpha of the pack, and to see him and his brother in the same pack and how that's not an easy relationship. The next one is Carswell's Guide to Being Lucky, which is a lot happier short story. Thankfully, I like the fact that they managed to shift back and forth between the two of them. So, like, we'll have a sad short story, then a little bit happier one. So, this one is Carswell in school, and we get to see him just flirt with all the girls, basically. I like small touches like him telling all the girls in the school that he can't go to this dance, but if he did, that girl would be the one he'd go with to every single one. He is so lucky none of those girls talk to each other. And we get to see the whole story behind Karen Kate Fallow, the girl that he like saved and everything, that Cress like falls in love with him for this act of bravery. So we get to find out what actually was going on in Carswell's head when that happened. And we get to see Carswell's family, which is not a great relationship, and his cat, which is like a robotic cat. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. Like, I love my cat, and I don't mind cleaning up the litter box and stuff to have like an actual purring living creature enjoy my company. After the Sunshine Passes is a short story following Cress from the time that she's with all the other shells on Luna to her going to the space station. And Cress is really hopeful and adorable, so I love her so much. But I also felt so bad for her when she gets to the satellite. She has this moment where she thinks she's going to Earth. And she's like, I'm going to go to Earth, guys, and I'm going to spy from there, and it'll be great. And then she's in complete isolation instead. Seeing nobody but Sybil Mira, and not great. Like, I knew it was going to happen, but I didn't like it. The next short story is The Princess and the Guard, and this is Winter and Jason on Luna, and we get to see them kind of just playing and being happy, and it's so adorable, the beginning of the short story. And then we get to the part with the maid who tries to kill herself, but Winter stops her, and we find out why Winter stopped using her gift, and how awful it was for her, and what a big decision it was, and how she struggled for it. And Winter knew she was going to go crazy. She didn't use her gift, but she does it anyway. And just the relationship between Winter and Jason is complicated. Like, yeah. And Lavana in this one is just awful. We get to see how Winter got those scars, and it was even more awful than I thought it was going to be. I swear every time I find out something new about Lavana, she just gets worse. Okay, so the next short story is The Little Android. This is set in the same world but doesn't have any of the other characters, and I really enjoyed going into this short story having no idea what was happening and what was going on. So if you guys would also like to go into the short story not knowing what's happening, I suggest maybe stop watching at this point or skip this one. I love this short story. It is really sweet, but it's also kind of depressing. So, yeah. If you wanted to stop, now's the last chance. Okay, so the short story follows an android who starts developing feelings and emotions, which I liked. At the very beginning, I thought it was Aiko. Like, it's like, oh, are we going to hear Aiko's story? Um, it's not Echo. And it took me a while to figure out that this girl who falls in love with a human and saves his life and then gets a human body, but she loses her voice in the process, and it isn't until she's like trying to talk to the guy she likes and like pointing at her voice that I figured out this was a Little Mermaid. And for a hot second there, I was ecstatic and happy and like, all right, we're gonna do the Little Mermaid. Oh yeah. And then about 2 seconds later, I realized it was not the Disney version. That story does not end well, and this was gonna be incredibly depressing. And it kind of was. She gets a kind of a happy story in that it's not the ending is a little bit happier than I thought it was going to be, but it's still kind of a depressing story. The guy she likes falls in love with a cyborg, and I just, yeah, the story is really cute, and I don't know how I feel about this story because on one hand it's really cute and I like the android that falls in love with a human, and I really wish that she could have told him that she doesn't even get the chance to tell him that she's in love with him because she can't talk and communicate, and I feel so bad for her. Um, and then he falls in love with somebody else, and she just has to like take it and watch him fall in love with this other girl, and this girl is so nice to her, and she's like figures out that the android, because she's in a escort body, so like the guy she falls in love with doesn't even know she's an android, and the girl that he falls in love with is like figures out that she's an android and tries to be nice to her, and it's just really complicated. So the ending is not quite as depressing as I thought it was going to be, but it was still definitely the saddest short story in this book. The next short story is The Mechanic, and I love this. It is Kai's version of his and Cinder's first meeting, which is really poetic because it's the very first scene in Cinder. We get to see what's going through Cinder's mind when she first meets Kai, and now we get to find out what Kai was thinking, and we get to find out more about like how Kai rationalizes things, and I love it. It's so adorable. Yes, he was sweating profusely underneath that really hot sweatshirt in the middle of summer. Um, yeah, this one's adorable. It is the happiest one in this one. Up until this point, it is the happiest short story in this book. And I really love it and adore it, and it's wonderful and perfect. I love Kai and Cinder so much, so to get to see this and to get to see him get like really excited and like, oh, she's gonna fix Nancy, and I'm gonna be able to find the Lunar Princess, and it's before all the stuff happens in Cinder where everything goes kaput and goes to shit. So I like this. It's great, and I like the fact that we're the second to last story in the entire series is the very beginning. That's so cute and poetic. So the very last one is the epilogue, Something Old, Something New. It has a wedding in it, and I love the short stories so much. It is so perfect and cute. If you guys haven't read the short story yet, I totally suggest you go read it on your own without anybody spoiling it for you. Let me just tell you that it is amazing, and when I finished this book, I was holding it and cuddling it, and it was perfect, and it made all the other pain in this entire series so worth it. So go read it. I adore it. If you have read it, I'm gonna do a spoilery bit here because I have to. This short story, oh my goodness. So the first thing was, it was like there's gonna be a wedding. And I'm like, well, that's not gonna be Cinder and Kai, so that would be too obvious. So it's either gonna be Cress and Thorn or it's gonna be Scarlet and Wolf, and it is Scarlet and Wolf. I love it. I love it. And we get to see Scarlet kind of panicking and freaking out. And not because she's getting married, she's like totally ready to marry Wolf, and I love that. But the press has shown up because Kai and Cinder are coming to this wedding. And suddenly this small affair, she's like, oh, it's just gonna be my closest friends and family. Once the rest of the town finds that out, they're like, oh, but we're your closest friends and family. Scarlet will be there, don't worry. And all of a sudden, it's the entire town. And all the press is on her farm. Like, she is completely spazzing out. So the rest of the group, her friends, come up with a plan to get the wedding, like to have the wedding that she wants, to make the small intimate affair. Kai ends up performing the ceremony because of course he can. He's the emperor of an entire freaking continent. Of course he can perform a wedding ceremony. And I love it. And most of it's, I think it's mostly all told through Cinder's perspective. Most of it's told through Cinder's perspective. And I love the little touches. Like, all the guys are downstairs prepping the area with like all these decorations with flowers and tulle and making it look like a fairyland thing, whatever, like elaborate. And we have a scene where Jason is like making the bouquet, and I'm like, that's so cute, guys. And like Thorne completely like takes over and is like, I know exactly how this should look, guys. Let me do it. And then the girls are upstairs trying to keep it a secret from Scarlet until the moment she's about to walk downstairs. So they're like, you should put on your dress, we want to see it. And oh, we should test your makeup and your hair and make sure it looks okay. And we're gonna put the shoes on that you're borrowing from, who did she borrow the shoes from? Cress, I think? Whatever. You're gonna put the shoes on and we're gonna see the whole outfit all together. We're gonna make sure that it is absolutely perfect. And then Scarlet wants to find everything for the old traditional something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. So she has her mother, or she has Michelle's flight pin that she gets in the very first short story in this book. And that's her something old. She's got a new dress. She's borrowing shoes. And then she's like, but I don't have anything blue. So Winter takes some blue thread and she stitches Alpha into the lining of the skirt in blue, which I thought was like the most perfect touch. I'm like, oh. And they managed to keep it a secret from her. Although it was almost blown when she comes out and she's like, where'd Wolf's tux go? Like, what? No. And then we've got like Cress lying, I think. One of them is like, oh, Thorne wanted to make sure they were matching. And I'm like, no, not matching, not matching. Right, not matching. I love that scene. But they managed to get her downstairs. She doesn't realize until like she's actually walking down the stairs that it's gonna be her actual wedding, and she is so, I love it. It's so sweet. And her friend Emily from Scarlet shows up, and she's brought like this delicious food, and it's just so perfect. And then, like, the actual wedding ceremony, Kai gives, he's giving the speech, and it works for both Cinder, I mean, it works for Scarlet and Wolf so perfectly, but it's also got this hint to it that it could work, it could be about him and Cinder, and I love that. And then we have, like, the party and the dancing, and it's awesome. And then it ends with Kai proposing to Cinder. Finally! Freaking finally he proposes to her. And it is so perfect, and I love it. I love it so much. So there's my review for Stars Above by Marissa Meyer. It is so amazing, and I love it, and it is the perfect ending to the series. And I know that there's going to be like a graphic novel or comic book or something following Aiko, so we're not completely done with this story, but we are kind of done with the novels. So I'm sad to see this series end and to have this be over, but at the same time this was the perfect ending to it, and especially that epilogue, man. I love that epilogue. So I love it so much. So yeah, peace out. I love you guys, and keep reading. Bye.